Hi, Primas. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Giselle.
and this is the For Las Primas podcast.
Welcome.
Bienvenidas. Thank you for joining us for another episode of For Las Primas. We're so excited to be here. Giselle, you are literally straight off a plane.
Straight off a plane from Puerto Rico. I went for my friend's wedding. Congratulations, Marcos and Bethany. It was beautiful. We had a great time. We stayed extra days, got to see the island a little bit, just the east side, but it was really, really good. It's good to go back to a Spanish-speaking country and just feel more at home and connected to mi gente.
I love that. What was something that surprised you? Because you've been to Puerto Rico before, but this time around, post Bad Bunny's album dropping, are there things that you noticed that maybe you didn't notice before?
So this is my fourth time going to Puerto Rico, or San Juan, and I've been to San Juan. This was my fourth time. We did go off to the east side of the island. Like I said, we went to Fajardo, and I did notice or how Caucasian everything is, or like how Americanized and U.S. has is slowly taking over Puerto Rico, and a lot of things that we noticed too, like me and my husband, is like we would go out to eat and we're like, this is a local spot. Like we're eating with locals, and the price of food is so expensive. Everything was a minimum $20 dish. Like we didn't spend less than that anywhere.
Wow.
Crazy and sad. It's really sad.
Did you see a lot of locals, or did you feel like a lot of people from the US are living there? Or like, I know you go as a tourist, right? So you're like a lot of tourism, but
Yeah.
did you find that there was like a lot of people living there from Puerto Rico, or was it a mix?
I think it was, well, I think where we were at and where we got an Airbnb, we made sure to like research the Airbnb and that it was actually like a local who owns it and rents it. So I think where we stayed, there was like this little park next door to our condo, and that had a lot of locals in that park. Like I think that was just like a local park. We did go eat one night outside of La Perla, which there was some tourists there. But
What is La Perla for those listening that maybe aren't familiar?
So for those listening, La Perla is an iconic Puerto Rican community located in San Juan, in Viejo San Juan. But the Despacito music video was filmed there. But I honestly didn't even know. I haven't watched the music video myself. So I'm like, okay, cool. So it became really iconic for that. But it's just like an OG community where the homes and everything there, I mean, from what I saw, it did, but it hasn't really been gentrified. It hasn't really been touched. It's remained with its authenticity. But it's not the safest for tourists to go there. That you can go, but don't like stay too long, and no pictures and no videos.
Yeah, I feel like I remember hearing about La Perla from Héctor Lavoe, which is like one of the most famous Puerto Rican salsa singers. For those of you who haven't watched the movie El Cantante by Marc Anthony, it was a great one. But back in the 80s, there was like really heavy heroin use. And I feel like La Perla came up a lot in those conversations where people would go to like find the drugs or use the drugs. Glad that you got to go. I'm glad you were with your husband to keep you company.
It was a lot of fun. I feel like I need to constantly, quarterly at least, go to a Spanish-speaking country.
I know, it just connects you differently to be able to use the language, right?
Totally. And another fun thing was like when people would be like, oh, I need a name for the order. So here in the US, I always give my husband's name because it's very easy, and I rarely give mine. But when I was over there, I was like, oh, I can give my name. She said.
I love that. I'm going to say this again. I think I've said this before. If you can't say Giselle, like you don't deserve to speak English. I don't know.
I don't know. That people find it really hard. I don't know.
Well, good. I'm glad you're back. I'm excited to go with you in August and get to experience it together. Want to share that I have a career coach. It's kind of a new thing. Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about like self-care and things that we do for self-care. Shout out to my company. It's a company benefit that I can have a career coach. I've had 3 sessions with her so far. And in one of the sessions, she made me take an assessment that talks about your saboteurs, which immediately I think of like no sabo. I don't know why, but
That's exactly what I thought about.
saboteurs. Basically, saboteurs are the voice in your head that generates negative emotions, and then they create automatic patterns for how you think, how you feel, how you respond. But the actual saboteur itself can be positive or negative. So, surprise, surprise, my biggest saboteurs are hyperachiever and controller. These can be really great things like goal oriented and go for what I want, but also there's a lot of negative connotation with both of those. And honestly, it makes so much sense, especially like as a first generation Latina, I'm navigating work, family, and just life in general. And I've been so wired to believe that my worth is tied to what do I achieve or what my achievements, to how much I do, how much I produce, make sure everyone is taken care of, that everything is taken care of. And let me tell you, some weeks, this week, I feel that pressure so heavily. I'm managing a demanding career that I love, raising my son, all the things that come with that. He transitioned to a new school. It's his birthday. You have a birthday party, you have the school party, right? Showing up for my husband, and just trying to do it all right. And I had this like moment of reflection this weekend where it's like, I rarely drop balls on my responsibilities. But the one ball that I consistently drop or that I'm not scared to drop is myself and my own self care. And I know I'm not alone in this, but self care, honestly, it feels like a luxury sometimes.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like self-care is a luxury. Like as simple as like going to the gym or something like that. Like I just like hearing what you were saying, like I think about like our moms, like how the frick did they do it? Because then I feel like then that also is our first generation guilt being like, okay, we need to do this. Like if our moms could do it, we could do it. But like I know my mom didn't go to the gym and do any, probably didn't do any self care. If she still doesn't, maybe she has time for it now that we're older. But it is a luxury, totally.
Did your mom work while you were growing up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
My mom stayed home with us. I mean, I just have the best model of a mother. My mom, like, I was never without. There was always food. The house was
Mm-hmm.
clean. Like, my dad went to work. He would come home. We would all eat dinner together. Like, we had like a very traditional upbringing. And it's been really interesting to be the dad that goes to work and the mom that needs to do all the stay home activities. And like my husband helps so much. I still carry a lot of like weight for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to let go of the responsibility of things. So it's been interesting and challenging to sort of navigate all of the different roles and also a career.
Yeah, that's hard. Because I feel like as a woman, we're always expected that we're going to be the ones to let go of our career. I've had my mother-in-law ask me, like, well, what are you going to do when you have kids? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, like, what are you going to do about your job when you have kids? Like, it's expected that I'm going to be the one, expected that we're going to have kids and that I'm going to be the one to lose my career over it and all the sacrifice that I've made and done. Yeah, it's a
You know,
lot.
I will say I am super grateful for my job. There is so much flexibility, like working remotely. It does make it easier for me to juggle all of the different roles and have my career, but also be present with my son if he has like a school activity or if there's a field trip. I'm not any less productive. That's like the big thing. You can get a lot of work done throughout the workday that you don't need to sit in an office. I actually feel like I was less productive in an
I was
office.
going to say, I would love to see the data. It's been 5 years since COVID. It's been 5 years since we have all had to go remote. Well, not me, 'cause I'm a healthcare worker. We don't go remote, but like everybody else and they work at the business world. can go remote. I would love to see the data and see if really they lost productivity, gained productivity, nothing changed. Because to me, I got a computer in my house. I can do that at home.
Totally. Shout out to the healthcare workers, by the way. And I know like that's the reality for so many hardworking Latinas, right? And women of color too, like just moms in general. And it's wild to think for me how diversity, equity, and inclusion, like the scary word of DEI, it's being so weaponized by this administration. And it makes me so angry when DEI efforts decline in corporate, like it directly affects job opportunities, pay equity, workplace flexibility. And I also want to give a shout out to Black women, right? Like they also are really harshly affected by this. So I recognize my privilege in having a job that supports me, but I also think about people that don't have that flexibility. And that brings me to something that we talked about last time that has just been in my head, and it's code switching, because there's like a world to talk about with code switching. And thinking about like language and multilingual employees, especially Latinos, and they're expected to switch between languages at work with no higher pay.
No higher. This is also known as silent labor. And this is what people, multicultural people, have to deal with. It's a skill that we have to be able to switch between the languages, translate for your patients. And yet it's treated like a favor. And there's nothing, it's not valued enough to be compensated in these companies.
Oh my gosh, the silent labor is crazy. Like I feel like I think about like you a lot and healthcare professionals and how like my son's pediatrician office, all the front desk workers, like nurses that check you in, they're all Latina and the doctors are American. Like our
That's another, yeah, totally. Overall, the majority of healthcare workers, like doctors, nurses, techs, nurse practitioners, like across the US overall, predominantly white. And the community hospitals and nonprofit hospitals, majority of those patient populations in my area are Hispanic. And yeah, they justify not paying us by being like, oh, we have a translator, just use the translator tablet. But in an emergency, when shit is hitting the fan, nobody's grabbing the freaking tablet. Nobody's setting that shit up. They're like, fulana, fulano, come over here and translate. Can you translate? And, yeah, it just gets so angry. I feel like.
tell us. We
because getting this higher education to be a registered nurse, for example, is a privilege. So it just like goes all the way back to like, generational privileges that like first generation and immigrants don't have. So then, working that whole like school system to try to get enrolled in school, to get help from school, and then like making it through all the way to the end, because I had to work 2 jobs and go to RN school, just to be an RN. And then like finally you make it, you're an RN. But that's not a lot of people. And then to make it to the doctor level or nurse practitioner level or master's level, it's even harder, more expensive, more time, more money. Like, so we just fall through the cracks.
I agree. I think that that's like what's so scary about like, again, like DEI and these initiatives that help minority groups actually have opportunities and have a seat at the table, right? Like I got into college with affirmative action, and a lot of kids rely on that too, because if, especially thinking like higher caliber schools like a Harvard and like a Yale, like it's just like all money that's staying from generation to generation. When we remove DEI and we say, actually, these 2 people have the same qualifications and they're both qualified for the job, but that one person had to go to night school, had to work 2 jobs, had to take care of their family, had to translate for their family, had all of these level of responsibilities. They don't understand that we're not at the same level, actually, because I had to work 10 times as hard as you did to be here. I have a fun stat that I wanted to share. So, first gen Latinas are more likely to be first in their family to go to college. Latinos made up 20.6% of US college students in 2021, but a significant portion are first generation. And according to the Immigration Initiative at Harvard, the immigrant origin child population has grown nearly to 20 million and now make up approximately 27% of the US children's population. So
Wow.
27% of the US children are Latinos.
Wow. That's a fourth more.
That's a lot. A lot.
That's, oh, I'm proud of those kids. I'm
I know.
proud of those kiddos.
It also like makes sense for like the first gen Latinas thing or first generation like people going to college, because I feel like the American dream that our parents were chasing was so that their children can go to college, while most of our parents had a high school education, maybe GED, maybe not even finished like high school.
Yeah.
So I feel like that tracks. The numbers show that like people in senior leadership are white people. They are not represented. Uh,
Mhm.
there is not, I don't see that Latina representation. And so one day I just said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to be the Latina leader that I want other Latina women to have to look at them. I show up to work every day in such an intentional way because I'm a role model for other women, or I want to be a role model for other women to say, like, it's not just about working hard, it's about advocating for yourself, and it's about doing the things you need to do to get in the position that you want. I'm so angry about what's happening in our country. We need these supports. Every professional needs opportunities to have a seat at the table.
Totally. And I hope that everybody listening to us knows, I'm just going to say it, that the DEI um, is not just like accepting people because of their race. It's just giving us a seat at the table.
No, we're smart. We have the grades, we have all
Mhm.
qualifications, but we aren't allotted the same opportunities, period. And I recently saw too that our official language is English in the United States. And I want to start by saying that this is the only country in the world that celebrates monolingualism. And that doesn't bother me as much as because in Europe, like people speak multiple languages, which gives you more opportunities in the world and understand different cultures and connect with different people. Here, Americans are so ignorant that like we celebrate monolingualism. And I'm not mad that that was passed, because sure, we can have English be our official language. But what I am mad about is people then on the internet coming out in their racist voices. This is crazy. It's like the hate that people get after the fact that is not okay.
I
But
also feel like some of that stuff, like, okay, because like when they switched the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America on Google Maps or whatever, do you feel like some of this stuff people were just like, let's just do it here? But like if you use a map from a different country, like that's not gonna say Gulf of America. So you think they're just like, just do it, just do it. It's crazy that like all these people feel like it's okay to come out of hiding now. Like that's the crazy part for me. It's like, no, it's still not okay. Like you still shouldn't say these things out loud, but like this administration just makes it seem like it's fine to be
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. And we have it hard enough as it is. Like, I think we were talking about this the other day, but it's like our husband's not really understanding the privilege of being like white compared to like us being Hispanic. I remember when we lived in Montana, we went on a bike ride and we would bring a speaker to listen to music while we went on our bike ride. And my husband was playing reggaeton so loud. And I immediately was like, lower that music. Like, what are you doing? We're causing so much attention to ourselves. And my husband's like,
Mhm.
I get it. We're just listening to music. I'm like, yeah, but like today and day, if we were like out there playing music, then that's like a target that like we don't know English or we're not speaking it
Yeah.
now.
Girl, yes. Let me tell you what happened to me at the nail salon the other day. I was on the nail salon on FaceTime, with my sisters and my cousin, and we're speaking, and my grandma too. And we're speaking in Spanish because my grandma's there. And I was not being crazy, I don't think, but I wasn't like, no, we're just like, oh, blah, 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 on FaceTime. And this white old lady told the nail salon owner, "Can you tell her to be quiet?" And I was like, okay. And then I ended up hanging up the phone. And then as I was checking out, she was like, "Yeah, it was the lady over there. She just was saying you were being too loud." And I was like, interesting. I wonder if I wasn't speaking in Spanish, if it would have been a problem.
Yeah. It's just hard to know. Like, one thing that I think about is misconceptions with DEI too, because I feel like people only associate it to race and to gender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it also has to do with people with disabilities. What are people that study
Like
like,
hearing aids?
yeah, like an audiologist?
Okay.
I have no idea. To all the ear doctors out there, sorry, I'm not sure what we call your profession, but there was a conference and they had cut a bunch of funding because the words DEI were like within their um philosophy or their website or something. And at the conference, people were like crying and super upset. And it was some stupid like mistake, but actually it was about people with like hearing loss, and it was research for people with hearing loss. So it doesn't just affect gender and race, it also goes beyond that, and people with disabilities as well.
And I know someone who works for the VA, and they had to remove everything that had the words diversity, inclusion, identity, and something about like gender or something like that. And in the bathrooms, if you don't feel safe, if you've been assaulted, like anything like that, you can give a little card to like a healthcare worker, and it's like a discreet way of telling us like you're not okay. And because it had the word in there like gender or something like that, they had to take all that down from the bathrooms, which is so scary and so sad.
I was gonna say that I loved the backlash from Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show. There was like a bunch of people that came out and they were like, um, there was no white dancers, blah, 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 like all these white people. And they're like, oh, it sounds like you're looking for DEI. Sorry, you guys voted against that. So no.
Do you have any little like microaggressions? I call them microaggressions because it's just my way of fighting back every single day in a way that probably nobody will ever notice. I love to do it because I'm just like, this is my microaggression.
What
Like
give
marrying
me
a white man.
oh
You know
Mary.
that those little things that they're like, "I'm taking your jobs and your man."
Yes, I feel that way. Yes.
Like one of the ones my friend told me is that she'll like write um like wedding invitations or correspondence, and she'll always put the woman's name first instead of doing the man.
I didn't take my husband's last name.
There you go.
There you go. Because the patriarchy. But anyway, I still have my father's last name. So talk about the patriarchy. I'm just not continuing to uphold it. We both married gringos. And that is controversial, but also I feel like what our parents wanted for us. I don't know if you feel that way from your parents.
They were like, "Please marry an American."
How do you feel like your husband's evolution with navigating your family has been?
There's been a lot of growth, specifically in all the weird witchcraft things that we do in our family. What was your husband's first reaction to some witchcraft thing you were gonna do? What was the first thing you did for him, and like, what was his reaction?
Well, my grandma used to, if your stomach hurt, my grandma has this like witchcraft tied to Catholicism prayer thing that she does over your stomach. Within 15 minutes, you are better.
Wait. For all the ladies with stomach problems, please send me that freaking prayer.
IBS girlies. They need this.
The amount of times on this trip that would have saved me.
I do a lot of like my own rituals that isn't necessarily like tied to my family, but like I sage a lot and I like say mantras. So sometimes I'm just like how freezing the names.
Yeah, yeah.
Freezing the names. He got in the freezer and been like, what is this thing? And it'll be somebody's bottom with like a frozen cup. I'm like, leave that in the back. We need to freeze people out if they're like not aligned.
Oh
Well,
my gosh. I think that the first thing that we did was the egg cleanse.
okay,
And
what's
so you just like, it's just like to clean you, like all the mal de ojo and bad vibes that you have on you. You discard of the egg, not in the trash. You have to take it outside and go put it in the forest. You gotta get rid of it because it has the mal de ojo in it. So I did that to my husband, and he was like, "What the heck?"
do a lot of like different rituals, and there's like I mean, I don't consider them witchcraft. It's just part of our culture. It's just like, oh, you got to
Mhm.
cleanse, you do a cleanse. Oh, you got to take a bath with like white flower petals and do some
Right.
whatever, la agua florida, whatever it's called. Like you do what you got to do to get those bad spirits, those bad vibes off of you.
There's been a lot of growth too. Like I will say now my husband's like, all right, we're doing the egg thing, we're doing the bath thing, but like, he's like, okay.
I feel like more than that side of things, the growth in my situation has been just like our family gatherings are just extremely different from his family gatherings where they're like very quiet or they'll watch TV and they'll like hang out and talk and all of that. Like there is always loud salsa or reggaeton blaring in the background. There's always like a ton of drinking, a ton of dancing. If there's I'm trademarking this. If there's no pork, there's no party.
There's
Always
no pork,
pork.
there's no party.
There's always pork. There's always like arroz con frijoles, and he's always loved and embraced that. But I'll never forget the first time he met my family was at a Thanksgiving, and we walked in, and I was like, I have to do my makeup real quick, so I went into the bathroom and I let him go. It's a culture shock.
It's a culture shock. That's like such a great word. Like I think just like at the beginning, he's like, there's so many people. There's so many people. And like even for our wedding, I'm like, okay, like for the rehearsal dinner, we're just gonna do the close people. And there was still like 50 people. And he's like, everybody? I'm like, everybody. He said, this is everybody.
I was there. I was there.
Yes.
That was so fun. We had such a good time. Um,
Yeah. They also play a lot of games. Like we don't play games unless it's like domino.
Yeah, they don't like playing games. Like my family was very
We don't
like
like it.
anti games. Like nobody's playing games. They're talking, they're hanging out, they're drinking. Shout out to your fam. They're the best. Should we shift to a little cafecito and chisme?
Okay. Cafecito and chisme time.
I have a cafecito today. I have a seltzer because tengo tanta sed. But on cheers.
So this weekend it was the Oscars. Did you watch?
I did not. I watched clips, but I didn't watch the full Oscars. I know that Zoe Saldana won for Emilia Perez.
She did. I honestly, so Zoe Saldana swept award season. She won like every supporting actress role for her role in that film, which again, I didn't watch it. After they win, they go to like the little room where they do the interviews, and there was a Mexican reporter who was like, how do you feel about the fact that Mexicans don't feel supported by your movie? And her response was basically like, well, we didn't really do this movie. It's not really about Mexico. It's about the women in the movie and the things that the women go through. So like, I don't agree with your sentiments um, that Mexicans don't feel like she was not agreeing with the reporters telling her how Mexicans feel about the movie, which is crazy. I know that Mexican people are like not happy with the way that it represented Mexico, like saying that it represented Mexico in a bad light. It wasn't very accurate.
Agree that it was about like the women and their journey, but also like you can't just say it's not about Mexico. It was all about los desaparecidos, which is talked about consistently in Mexico. Cartel violence is something
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like people hone in on a lot. And when I've gone to Mexico, even people have been like, esta candela, tiene que tener cuidado, blah, blah, blah. But really, like, that's not a representation of all of Mexico.
I think it's crazy that she is telling her like, no, 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 you're wrong about the way Mexico feels about the movie, and B being like, well, the heart of the movie wasn't even Mexico, so like, um, yeah, like her response was crazy. But then she also ended it with being like, and if Mexican people want to talk about it, then I'm open to for that conversation. I'm like, girl, I feel like you just double standard that whole entire thing.
I feel like she spoke well because she's like a very well-spoken person. It also felt rehearsed. Like you guys could have made up a country and you could have
Yeah,
made up a situation.
especially that the story was made up.
Totally.
Like it wasn't even a real story.
I was talking to somebody and they're like, is it based on a true story? I'm like, no. They're like, oh, I'm good. I'm like, what does that matter? That's crazy. Did Wicked win anything?
It won 2 for best costumes and set design.
Oh my God, Wicked has been my favorite movie. Like since
I
I
the plan.
It's so good.
All right, primas, that's all we got for you today.
Gracias por estar con nosotras. We love you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.